Mark, thanks for coming on the pod.
Yeah, thanks for having me. No, really delighted to be here. Looking forward to this one.
No, it's a real pleasure. I've been looking forward to this one. This is episode number 8. And what I think has been really important, or what is really important about this particular conversation that we're about to have, is that you are not, in the traditional sense, a fitness professional or a fitness expert, but you are somebody that is coming at this from a real lived experience, which I think is incredibly valuable and something we haven't had. Whilst the guests we've had on the podcast have been and are fantastic in their fields, I think the trend seems to be that we've all fallen into this line of work because it's our passion and something we've done for a very long time. And like I say, your story, which we'll get into in just a moment, I think is just really reflective of kind of everyday life, busy professional, lots going on. And so with that in mind, for those that don't know you, Mark, would you mind giving us a bit of an intro as to who you are?
Yeah, hi. So I'm Mark, and I'm I like to just describe myself as a regular bloke. I've got my own little business as a sales agent, but outside of that, I've gone on a weight loss journey over the past year or so. I turned 40 last year, and decided I really need to start looking after myself a bit better. And so I went on this weight loss journey, which I'm still doing, but I've lost 4.5 stone since sort of February last year. And that then inspired me, together with a friend, to launch a podcast on men's weight loss, Big Fellas Weight Loss for Men. I'm sure we'll talk about that in a bit, but that's what I do. Like I said, I'm that busy professional, like you said. I've got 3 kids of my own. I have 2 step kids as well, so I've got a very busy home life and a dog. So I don't often get time to stop and breathe, but it's all going, and so very much sort of juggling the challenges of life.
And that, I think, is so important, and the basis in which this podcast was originally kind of launched under. We've had a bit of a rebrand since season 1. It started off as the Healthful Executive, simply because I spent 7-ish years working as a consultant to senior leadership players within massive organizations, and noticed that there was a real lack of, whether it's willingness or understanding, or people just perhaps being lost in the fact that they're so busy that they were forgetting to prioritize their health and their well-being. And so initially I started this podcast, like I say, to kind of be a free information hub for the traditional busy professional. We've since rebranded, and the podcast is now Fit for Function, because I like the idea of the function being kind of really whatever that function is to you, whether that's a dad, whether that's a professional, whether that's perhaps more athletic endeavors. The function is up to you to choose what that function looks like. And I think, as I was saying to you off air just then, I've had some great people on this podcast already, but we work in this industry, and I think it's really important to hear from somebody who is juggling these things: 5 kids, a dog, a business, a podcast. So let's dig in a little bit more if we can. You turned 40, and what was kind of the oh shit moment for you to start making some changes?
Well, it's a good question. There's been sort of points sort of leading up to it, I guess. Someone said to me, you make the biggest changes in your life in your 9-somethings. I don't know if you've heard that as an expression before, but people that are 29, 39, 49, just before you hit that next decade, you'll find more people run marathons in their 9-somethings for the first time.
That's really interesting.
It's I guess that you get to a stage where you start reflecting on things, and as you enter a new decade, you want to make some changes. And so in the past sort of 18 months, so when I turned 39, one of the first things, well, not the first thing I did, but I'd always had the desire to sort of work for myself and become self-employed. And so not long after turning 39, I quit my job and then started over as a sales agent. So yeah, I had been a sales rep for pretty much the entirety of my career, but it was always a case of, well, I want to do this for myself, I want to do a bit more. So that was step one. I became self-employed and started my journey there. But then at the start of 2024, looking down on the sofa and my gut was bulging. There was a picture, I think, me falling asleep on the sofa on Christmas Day, 2023, and I looked over it and I just thought, the size of my belly there, it was scary. And I think that was a bit of a wake-up call. And then there's probably little things in between that as well. I remember one of my kids talking about me to another mate, and they said, yeah, that's my dad, but he's a bit lazy. And that really hit hard as well.
Like that. Yeah.
And and hearing a few things like that really did sort of like, it just all got to a point thinking, I keep putting it off, I keep making excuses, I know I want to, but even that's not enough. And then it just built and built, and I thought, right, I'm turning 40 this year. And then I said to myself, I say the way I am, I'm going to be fat, bald, and 40. Is that is that a great place to be? I can change one of those things. So
right, that feels not bad. Yeah.
So so that's kind of was what spurred me on. And so it's this, I wouldn't say there was a light bulb moment, but it's just a build up, and a combination of things get to that point. We think, really, something's got to be done here.
Yeah, I understand. And what allowed me to really resonate with your story is, in my early career, I spent about 3 years working as I headed up a gym membership sales team for the largest health and wellbeing facility in Southampton. And it's really cool because you get to meet every kind of potential gym goer. You get the bodybuilders, you get the people that know what they're doing. But the thing that I really loved is you meet the people that are at that point. Like, I need to make a change, whether it's I had a lady come in, she needed an operation, she needed to lose weight. I had people that just were unhappy in themselves, going through a divorce, whatever it might be. And I was always really proud, and it sounds really condescending, but I was always really proud of those individuals, because the hardest step they took that day was getting out of the car when they got to the car park. Yeah. I know how much of a big decision that was. I'm also conscious, when I look back at it now with a little bit of experience and kind of as a grown-up, that the sales team, we were all kind of fit athletes. So they're walking into a room full of people that kind of, we know what we're doing. Especially back then, I was really big into my bodybuilding. We look like we know what we're doing, and they're coming in and saying, like, help me. And so, that moment for somebody to say, I need to make a change is a difficult one. Where did you start? What was, you turned 40 and you're like, right, I'm going to do something here. Did you have a goal in mind, or was it a case of, I'm just going to tweak some lifestyle habits? Where did you get going? It
was just a reality of weighing myself and checking my BMI, and we'll come on to that in a bit. But my BMI put me comfortably in the obese category. It wasn't like I was borderline. I was obese by those metrics. Now, we can argue if they're the best set of metrics to use, but I was obese. And looking at me, I had a big old belly on me and sort of treble chin, whatever you want to call it. I was a big lad. So the first point was, well, the ideal is, let's get to a healthy BMI, a healthy weight, which is, I think, for me, on my height, is about 12 stone 10. Just for context, I'm sitting on about 14 and a half at the moment. So like I said, I'm still on the way. But I remember I went to see a diet consultant, and this said, look, that's the ultimate goal. I haven't got a timeline, but we need to start working towards that. And her words were, she said, look, I completely agree. You can't do it overnight. This isn't going to be a 5-minute fix. Let's break this down into smaller chunks, and let's focus on that first stone. See how quickly we can get that first stone off. Yeah. and then stone number 2, 3, and 4, and then and that was really what it was. And so, yeah, and really, I think how I've now set myself was when I was 19 stone, I was getting sort of aches in my joints. I had a problem with my hip, and I was asking myself then, is this because I'm just getting old and this is what happens? Is this due to my weight? Like I said, I've put more pressure on my joints. Maybe it's the weight. And I just didn't like the thought of being sort of in my 40s and struggling to sort of move about and everything. But on the same respect, I didn't feel like I could engage in any kind of real physical activity, or because I think I'd be putting more pressure on my joints and everything. And so I kind of said to myself, I need to do this over 2 phases almost. And so that first phase was, let's just drop a bit of weight, doing a specialist diet. And then when you've lost a bit of weight, exercise should become that much easier. You put less strain on your body, less pressure on the joints. And so that was that's kind of where I'm at now. And so now I am sort of getting into doing a bit more exercise. But yeah, certainly it was there's never a final the ultimate goal is to get to a healthy BMI that I can speak to my doctor and all measurements check out, like, yeah, Mark, you are of a healthy weight, a healthy physical condition for a man of your age. That's the goal. I don't know exactly what that looks like, but I like to think I'll know when I get there.
Yeah, and I think it's also something to factor in is that, yes, I understand that the importance of you and I have already spoken about this, but let's start there. Right, BMI. It's a tricky system because I mean, you used a brilliant analogy earlier when we were chatting about Anthony Joshua, AJ.
Yeah.
Did we say he's morbidly, or is he just obese? What's it?
When I looked at it, he was he was not morbidly, but he was in the obese category.
Right.
I did a little Google search this morning, and he's 6'6", and he's 114 kilos. I think he was for his last fight. Now, if you put that into the BMI calculator on the NHS website, that puts him comfortably in the obese category. And only an idiot would then look at Joshua and say, yeah, you're obese, mate. He's not. So it's a very, very crude metric. And like I said, it's just come out in the news today that the medical profession are looking at how they can reevaluate the BMI index and make it a bit more realistic, I guess. I think we have to accept people are all different shapes and sizes. We come in different shapes and sizes, so we can't use the same measuring stick against everyone for that reason. It needs to be a bit more nuanced.
Yeah, I don't know what that looks like, whether that's certainly I think body fat needs to play into it.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And that's the thing, I guess, is the BMI doesn't factor in body fat. Like I said, if it was measuring me against AJ, I've got more body fat than him. That's the reality of it. But then that scale's telling me that I'm in better condition than AJ is. Of course I'm not.
Yeah,
so it just
sorry,
there needs to be nuance attached to it. So yeah, body fat is obviously one, but there's also is it visceral fat, which gathers around the organs. So you could be a skinny or in theory in shape, but you've got fat gathering around your major organs that's not so obvious, and you could be in a really sort of dangerous place. And this is the thing, there's so many different nuances and intricacies here. It's definitely not a one size fits all.
I agree, and I also think weight in general is quite challenging. You know, I coach predominantly men. I have some female clients. The female clients are the ones that really talk about their weight the most.
Yeah.
And the conversation I'm having with them on a regular basis is, unless you are a competitive athlete in the sense that, for example, I do a lot of Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and excuse me. This is probably a good time to talk about this, just because it coincides. In 3 weeks, I'm competing. 4 weeks, I'm competing, and then so I have to make weight, which there's enough room in the bracket. I'm quite comfortably going to be there. 2 weeks later, I'm competing again. I need to do a weight cut. It's only a couple of kilos, but I need to shift that. But I'm saying to people that unless you're a competitive athlete that needs to drop the weight, don't get too hung up on it. I understand, Mark, why you've set that as a target. I think initially it makes great sense. But the conversations I have with my clients, particularly my female clients, is like, you've dropped a dress size, you feel better in your body, your clothes fit you better, but you're complaining that you're still at X weight. So again, it's finding that balance, right? It's
absolutely.
So the reason I'm talking about that is, you said, you know, I'd like to think I know when I get there. So yeah, I wonder how we will know, or how you will know. What will be the metric? I
think metrics are probably clothes size, I guess. Definitely, I've seen an improvement. I've gone from double XL down to L, which I'm probably more proud of than actually that number on the scales, in all reality.
I agree.
And it's putting on old jumpers and had to pull out an old coat from a couple of years back, and it absolutely swamps me. So I've actually had to have a real sort of clear out and get rid of some bits. Vinted's quite good for that, actually. So
it certainly is. Yeah, you're not wrong.
Yeah, so I had a real clear out, and it's becoming more active as well. And I've definitely got a lot more active. I play football weekly, and up until quite recently was always the goalkeeper, and more because it didn't involve me moving too much. But I'm now I'm out playing on pitch now, and get a lot more from it. And it was last week, beg pardon, this week on Monday, we won 4-0. I felt like I really made a contribution, and people saying to me, "No, you played really well tonight, mate." And it's things like that. And I know that a year ago I've never been able to sort of get about the pitch the way I did, and do those kind of things. And maybe a comment or remark from my kids to not say that I'm lazy. Maybe he's quite sporty, my dad. He plays football, he does this. So I've got no control on that one, so that's going to have to come from them. But maybe the day sort of Blake, Leo, Caden, one of them says, "Yeah, Dad's pretty active. He is." Yeah,
he's not a bad winger, you know, my dad.
Yeah.
Not a bad midfielder. I think I mean, they're always going to talk some level of shit, because I think that's the law. But
I'm the most uncool person in the world to those three boys, so
I'm gonna be the same. You know, I've got a 1-year-old, and I plan on embarrassing him every day of his life until he's I say even when he's older, but that'll probably be the same. I'd like to just take it back a step, if we can. What led you to a position where you were you were 39, approaching 40, unhappy with the way you looked and felt, perhaps overweight? What were the behaviors, the environments, the circumstances that led to that? Because again, I think that's something that really gets overlooked.
Absolutely.
And people kind of make these general assumptions about people when they are overweight, and it's always the same shit, and it drives me crazy, like lazy and unmotivated. It's important to point out, yes, sometimes, for sure, but there are often some much wider contributing factors, generally that stem from childhood, generally that are more environmental than they are anything else. So would you feel comfortable just giving a slight backstory?
Absolutely, well, first off, I've always kind of been a big lad. From childhood, I remember probably year 1, year 2 getting picked on for being fat, which seems crazy, but and so it's always lived with me. And so my weight's always been a thing, and going through school, it was always a thing. Even going into university, got a bit of shit from people about my weight, and even in the workplace. I mean, it's kind of always hung over me. I always remember, I talked about on the podcast, I was sat in a board meeting just reporting on sort of like the monthly sales data and everything to the chairman, and he made a really shitty remark about my weight. I can't remember exactly what it was, and I've got a table of about 10 people sat there, a couple of them laughing and a couple of them looking really, really awkward, and I'm sat there thinking, what the fuck am I supposed to do here? That was probably in my career, that was probably the most humiliating moment of my time. And so so I think on the whole it's always been there. I feel like it's almost become my identity. I've always been a big lad working. I can remember sort of when I got my first jobs, sort of working in a sports shop, it was the manager just always referred to me as Big Mark. There was 2 Marks, so I was Big Mark, and so it's just always been there. That said, my weight has fluctuated over the years. When I was in my mid-20s, I went on I lost a lot of weight. I lost about 4 stone then, and that was, again, I was in the mid-20s, and I remember taking up a box of samples to a client and getting to the top of the stairs and breaking into a massive sweat, and I thought, I'm 25, this shouldn't be happening, this is awful.
Right.
And
Right.
that was a light bulb moment at that time. So I lost a lot of weight then, and reasonably well kept it off. It fluctuated a bit, but kept a grasp of it. In more recent years is kind of where it then started to pile on a bit, and it was 2 things that happened in quick succession. The first one being, well, probably goes back a bit further. I got married, had kids, then sort of kind of settled and got comfortable. I then got divorced, and then that kind of put some real challenges there, and probably food did become an easy way out, I guess, in that sense, and a form of comfort. Then following my divorce, lockdown happened, and so then it was almost a double whammy. So that played into it, and probably my job's never been a great help, although it hasn't been a great help. I said I'm a sales agent, being a sales rep, I'm on the road all the time, and so options for healthy food were always few and far between. I think I'm getting better at making healthier choices, but again, we'll come on to that in a bit. But certainly, yeah, my weight is always kind of feel like it's always owned me as such, and it's always been sort of that heavy weight on my back. And so so having lost this weight, that was and starting this podcast, that was kind of my way of saying, look, I want to take ownership back here and make this about me, and this isn't about the number on those scales. There's more to me here. And but like I said, there is a history that I've always been this big guy, and so it's always, and I guess, I don't know, maybe it's just in my head, but it's always been there. Like, yeah, you're a big lad, you're fat, and then that then creeps into your confidence in different situations, be it business, be it relationships. It's always there, and it's always this horrible voice at the back of your head, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it really does. And I think certainly from my experience and my background in the general population well-being space, the general fitness space, the thing that I notice is that people tend to just resign themselves to the fact that they are X, you know, whatever X is. And that is always something that has upset me to hear, because it's not too late. You can turn it around. There are things you can do. And I think something that people need to understand in general is, on paper, it's really easy because, Mark, I'm sure you've heard this a bunch of times. People telling you just eat less, move more. Yeah. Cool. Fine. Yes, we know, because it does come down to really simple maths, right? It is calories in, calories out. We know, but there are other factors. Whether that is, a divorce will do that to you. Certainly, lockdown, and other kind of. I want to tread carefully here. I don't want to call it necessarily mental illness, but certainly some psychological challenges around relationships with food, and also just knowing there is we live in the information age, but there's so
Yeah.
much information out there that is either crazy or wrong, and it's just coming at us so thick and fast.
Yeah.
And I'll give you a quick example if you don't mind. I'm working with a guy at the moment, new client, signed up with me in, well, we are January, a couple of weeks ago. And we're talking through carbs. And I'm saying, I would like it if you could stick to fruits, potatoes, rice, and all I meant by that was kind of just, and that wasn't a conclusive list. That was just a few examples, non-processed, pretty solid, basic, relatively whole foods. And the question he asked me next was really interesting. Is pasta healthy? What he meant was, can I have pasta too? Absolutely, yes, you can, no problem. But it was that question, and I hear it all the time. People say, is this food healthy?
Yeah.
Well, that's not a black and white question.
Oh God, no.
There's a lot of nuance to it, and so it's just that lack of knowledge.
Yeah, there's a whole can of worms on there, and I think a big part of it is I think the food companies have a lot to answer for. And next week's episode on my podcast is all about ultra processed food, and I don't even know where to start on this because I could go on for ages talking about this.
Go for it.
I think the first thing is like, did I read? It's in America, like 80% of American food is dominated by.
I think it was 60, but it's high.
60,
it's
yeah,
really high.
And it's managed by about 6 different companies. It's ridiculous, and ultimately, the food is engineered to drive overconsumption.
Yes,
because it's all about profitability. I don't want to get all conspiratorial, and that's certainly not who I am or what I want to go on about. But the food companies are in it for driving profit and share prices. They're not in it for nutrition. And I don't want to, I don't want to go down a dark alley here and start going on about that. But that's the reality. Nestle is there to drive profits. They're not there to sort of drive nutrition. And that's a big part of this. And a lot of it with ultra processed food is foods that have that sort of health claims on it. So if it's low fat, low sugar, added protein, added vitamins, it's all, again, they're taking out raw ingredients and throwing in additives and extras, and that's driving a lot of the problems within the food industry. I read a book by Dr. Chris Van Tulleken, Ultra Processed People. Have you read it, or are you aware of it?
No, that sounds great.
I've said it on my podcast. It literally rocked my world, and it is just, that's the thing that I think is what's going to keep me on the right path, having lost this weight. Whereas often I didn't really have a plan or have the knowledge coming out of the weight loss as to where to go next. This time I've kind of equipped myself with a bit more knowledge and sort of understanding. And I think the biggest change I've made since losing the weight off the back of this book was I no longer drink Diet Coke. As a big guy, and I drunk Diet Coke like it was going out of fashion. I'd absolutely guzzle it. And the realization kicked in that okay, they've taken out the sugar, but it's just packed full of chemicals, and it's actually stimulating your insulin levels to literally the same level as regular Coca-Cola. So to the point, if you were to now put in front of me a can of Coca-Cola or a can of Diet Coke, I'd opt for the Coca-Cola. And that's one change I've made. But the reality is I don't drink Coca-Cola. I think since I stopped drinking sort of fizzy pop, I've had about 3 cans of Coca-Cola in the past 6 months.
Wow, good on you, mate.
I was probably having 3 cans of Coke a day, or Diet Coke a day. So that's one of the big changes that I've kind of made. And so, the food industry has a lot, and I think that's a big sort of driver in obesity. There was a famous quote from, of all people, Donald Trump, who got into a spot of bother about this, but he summed it up perfectly. And this was about sort of 10, 12 years ago. And this Dr. Chris Van Tulleken did a lecture about this, and he said it's Donald Trump's words actually sum up the state of the food industry perfectly. And he said, "Why is it only fat people I see drinking Diet Coke?" Which is like, okay, but this is Donald Trump saying it in a Donald Trump way. And it was a series of tweets. Who then followed up with another one. Whenever I drink it, I end up feeling hungry. And again, there you have it, because like I said, you're spiking your insulin levels, and it's not actually burning on anything, is it? So it's, and again, there you go. That's where that whole drive for overconsumption comes from. I think Mr. Trump got into a bit of bother about this from some of the food companies, so he did.
Oh, I'm sure he did.
Go quiet,
sure he did.
It does some things up, and it's, I said, it's the one change that I know I'm never going back to, and I can hand on heart say I've not touched Diet Coke in the last 6 months, and that's for me personally, that's a big move.
That's really good, mate. Well done. That's tremendous. And I don't think it's a conspiracy theory at all. I think it's really blatant that this is what they're doing. As you said, these foods are not designed to be satiating in any way.
No.
They burn quickly. And even down to things. So they use a lot of food science to really make the whole thing work together. So taste is obviously really important.
Yeah.
But they'll use and manipulate food science for things like mouthfeel, texture,
hyper palatable
packaging, hyper palatable.
Yeah.
Whereas, and I occasionally get a little bit of stick sometimes. So when my clients say to me, "I've got real sweet cravings, what can I do?" My go-to is berries and honey.
Yes.
Eat a bowl of berries and honey and tell me you don't feel A, totally satisfied, and B, totally full afterwards. And then I'll get comments like, "Oh, well, you've got to live your life a little." Absolutely. I still have, it's usually on a Saturday, me and the missus will have a movie night. We'll get popcorn, we'll get cookies, we'll have not so much takeaways anymore, but we'll buy food in and we'll just have fun,
Yeah.
Because I genuinely also do believe, like, what's the point otherwise?
Yeah.
You've got to have some fun with it. But these foods absolutely are not designed to be satiating, whereas you eat nutritious whole foods. And actually, I won't mention what this particular brand is because I don't want to get on my high horse about this. I've got a 1-year-old. We want him to eat like us. My wife and I, most of the time, we are whole foods. We don't mess around. As again, we're both fitness professionals, and we want him to eat the same. We looked at a very well-known kids snack because he's a growing boy and he's a hungry baby, and we thought, oh, this might help. And we picked up this pack in the supermarket about 6 months ago, and I read 8 or 9 ingredients before I got to something I recognized, and immediately thought, I'm not putting that in my baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I completely agree. And on that subject, are you aware of the Yuka app?
No.
So it's Yuka, Y-U-K-A. It's an app where you can basically scan barcodes of food products and cosmetics, and it kind of gives you a sliding scale of if it's good for you or not. And if it's not good for you, it'll tell you why. So it'll have so it's literally it's a score out of 1 to 100, no, 0 to 100. So 0 is it's really bad for you, don't touch it, to 100, which would probably be something like broccoli, which is the best food for you, and everything in between. And I've got this, and what I loved about it was I was able to get my teenage stepdaughter was able to engage with it. She's not got a great diet. She likes her snacks. She eats too many sweets, and she eats it like any other teenager. She's not unique in that sense. She's very much that. But one thing that we had were these. We'd always get them from the supermarket. These sort of cheap pan of chocolates, come in a big plastic wrapper. And that'd be the go-to breakfast choice because it's quick and easy. You can almost grab one on the way out the door. That was often how it was. And so I won't mention any brands or anything like that. But we put this through the Yuka app, and the score was bad. It was in like the bottom. It was sort of one. It was between like 1 and 10 out of 100. It was bad, and it was packed full of additives. And some of those additives were deemed to be carcinogenic. And no, I didn't say this directly to my stepdaughter Ava. I was having a conversation with her mum about this, thinking, should we really be buying these? And she overheard it. She says, what? She's saying they're going to give me cancer. I was like, oh no, okay, I don't. Let's just say, and then we just said, look, well, this is this app, and it's telling us what foods are good for us and what foods aren't. Now, what we're saying is that food, that kind of chocolate's not the problem, but there's better ones, and what we need to do is try and find the best one. And so we then had like an evening, myself and Ava, my stepdaughter, we went round the big Tesco in Peterborough, and we were scanning all the items. It was almost like gamifying it. It was like, well, that's what we have. Can we do better?
Fantastic.
And it was just a way of engaging Ava to sort of think, well, look, I can control what I put in my body, and if I'm having it, if I know it's bad, at least I know it's bad, but I can make a better choice here. And it's crazy. Since I've been using this, it does become quite obsessive. You go around, you're checking all things. But I went to a football match a few weeks back, and I went to Marks and Spencer and got a sausage roll, and it was one of the really posh ones.
Right.
And I just thought I thought I'll get that one rather than one of the cheaper ones. And then I was like 3/4 way through it, and then I checked it, and it was a really, really bad score. And to the point of thinking, oh, it was too late now. I didn't eat the rest of it, just knowing.
Did you not?
No.
Wow.
It literally just stopped me in my tracks. And yeah, and so I found sort of when out about sort of on the go snacks that are a bit healthier and less processed, and sort of try and veer towards those nowadays. But yeah, it did. That one kind of took me by surprise, and just because it's a good brand, or it's deemed to be of higher quality and sort of like one of the finer brands or finer sort of packaging, that doesn't mean that that's going to be better for you. And so it's just great to sort of equip myself with a bit more knowledge, and certainly for the kids, I thought that, like I said, I'm at that age. I've got a 13-year-old stepdaughter. Try and tell her what to do, she will do the opposite.
Of course.
But if I can equip her with knowledge so she can make her own choices, that's the best thing I can possibly do.
I think that's a brilliant parenting hack, Mark, and I think that's going to help a lot of parents out. On the subject of food, I think it's a great opportunity for us to use this as to understand from, again, 39, 40 years old, wanting to make a change. Where did you start with food? What were the big differences that you implemented straight away, and how did you then kind of build from that?
So I went on a specialist diet. I went on a Cambridge weight plan, and but I didn't go on the sort of extreme version where you're just drinking sort of meal replacement shakes. So I kind of struck a balance and went on that with ketogenic. And so I was having a couple of products a day, and then having sort of a carb-free meal. And that's kind of what sort of got me up and running, really. And so lots of steak, lots of chicken, lots of green vegetables. And I found something that worked, basically. I'd done the Cambridge weight plan in the past when I first sort of lost it when I was in my 20s. But at times I got outright miserable because I was just not having any food, and I was just missing it. So I then kind of just compromised it a bit, but went with I was eating, so I'd have a couple of diet products during the day, which kind of works. I had a busy schedule when I was out and about, and it means I could just get a bit more done. But then come home, and then I'd have a bit of steak and veg to look forward to. So that worked really, really well. Lots of eggs. Yeah, so it's just good proteins is kind of what I really started to get into me.
Which, by the way, if you want to feel less hungry during the day, protein is the one. It's the macro that no one seems to be hitting enough of.
Yeah.
And this isn't exact, and people shouldn't kind of take this as gospel. But it was explained to me once that carbs are like petrol, and proteins like diesel in terms of the way they burn. And it's kind of not really, but kind of. It's a useful starting point anyway to kind of consider it. But sorry, please carry on.
Yeah, and certainly, so yeah, it was just really getting sort of good carbs in me, and sort of lots of veg, and that sort of really sort of spurred me on. And because I got struck that balance, it worked well. I didn't feel hungry. I felt sort of satisfied, and then I was losing weight quickly and regularly, so that spurred me on to keep going, and I was getting the results. So that's what really worked. And those are the kind of things I'm trying to take forward now. When I'm out and about, that's one thing you can get usually in a motorway services or in a supermarket when you're out and about, is you can always get a pack of boiled eggs. And that is my go-to snack now when I'm out on the road. It's usually a San Pellegrino and a couple of boiled eggs,
Right.
as just to sort of kind of tide me over. Yeah, those are the sort of things. You mentioned about sort of like having a sweet tooth. I do like the berries, honey, and a bit of yogurt. That's been a go-to for me as well. And it's like you said, have that after dinner, and again, you don't have that bloated feeling where you've eaten too many carbs, but you've had something sweet. You feel satisfied, and it's bloody delicious, isn't it?
It's the one, I guess, go-to hack, for want of a better term, that I took. And I know people are going to say, yeah, but I'd rather have a donut. Or me too, by the way. Me too. But there's no crash. There's a ton of antioxidants. And I'm telling you, people that are watching, listening to this, just take our word for this one. Just give it a go. Handful of berries, some honey, some yogurt, and again, just tell me.
3 seeds thrown over the top as well. That always goes in well, just for a bit of texture.
Absolutely, a bit of crunch. You know, just if anyone does that consistently over the course of a couple of months and can report back that it didn't hit the spot for them, I would be blown away. Yeah,
no, 100%, mate. Totally agree on that one.
Great stuff. So really, it sounds, whilst on the Cambridge plan, it sounded like it's just, granted a couple of maybe meal replacements or a couple of, but again, we see Huel doing this really well and other brands, but really just good quality foods, no? Just improving the quality of what's going in.
Yes, yeah, and certainly coming out the other side, that has been my focus. And like I said, that's why I sort of got the Yucca app, and that's why I don't buy supermarket branded bread anymore. I go for the sourdough, and it's changes like that have really sort of stuck with me more so. And it's it's equipping yourself with knowledge, isn't it? And it's knowing what. Okay. The other thing as well, I think certainly with ultra processed food, was to not beat yourself up about it either. You can't escape it. It's everywhere, across the supermarket. If you were trying your best to 100% avoid it, you'd probably only shop on 2 aisles of the supermarket, if that. And so it's like I said, it's equipping your knowledge. You're just doing your best to make better choices. And so that's sort of like my focus now, and sort of how I try and how I eat going forward. Don't get me wrong, I like the snacks. I still enjoy a drink. We went. I went to football at the weekend and had a few beers with my mates, and really enjoyed myself. And so it's not like I'm living in a strict path now. I do make sure I kick back and enjoy myself. We just had Christmas. I enjoyed myself, but we enjoyed myself to a point. It didn't become my new existence. It was like, yeah, here we are. Let's enjoy this. Let's have fun. Right, a few days past now. Let's put it all away and focus on being the best version of ourselves, I guess.
That's really important, and something I tell my clients fairly regularly is, and it sounds like sabotage. It's not, but they'll send me a checking form. I'll see that they've been working really well on their food over the course of the last couple of weeks, and I'll say, right, make sure you get some fun in there too.
Yeah.
As I said, otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah,
we need that level of enjoyment, that level of fun, particularly in a social setting. That equally is important for us.
Absolutely. I think when I did the Cambridge weight plan, and when I was meeting with my consultant, she was very much saying, like, look, if you've got things planned, let's talk about it and we can prepare for it. And so within the first 6 weeks of me getting on the Cambridge plan, I went to Cheltenham with my mates, and she said to her, okay, right, well, we can maybe not drink quite so much, or you can maybe not drink, offer to drive or something like that. And I said, look, George, it's a boys' day out at Cheltenham races. We don't get to go very often. Yeah. I'm going to drink some Guinness. I'm going to enjoy myself, and then we're going to go for a curry. So let's just accept it for what it is. And she said, okay,
Right.
if that's how it is, then fine. What you need to do is maybe start introducing some carbohydrates back into your diet the day before. That will help with sort of the absorption of the alcohol and help your body process it. And then so maybe have a few carbs a day after, just to sort of, again, soak it up, but then get back on plan. And I think the fact that I actually did plan it, and it wasn't a case of having that sod it moment, which when you're trying to lose weight, that often happens. You just say sod it, and then you just give up, and then before you know, you've gone 3, 4, 5 days just eating crap. It was a case of, this is happening, prepare for it, enjoy it, and then get back to it. And that happened a few times sort of while I was losing the weight. I had my 40th birthday, so again, that weekend was big family dinner, barbecue, few drinks with mates. Again, it was all there, but I prepared for it. I knew it was going to happen. Didn't bother stepping on the scales the day after, because what's the point? Just deal with it. The funny one was when we did the Cheltenham. The week of Cheltenham races, I actually did lose weight between one week and the other, and she just said, "Look, that's testament to you. You prepared for it, you enjoyed it, and then you got back on at the other side. You can't say better than that, really." So, yeah.
I think you've touched on something there that I'd like to just quickly highlight. It is the getting back on it.
Yeah.
You know, so many people have this thing where they'll have a cookie at work or a cupcake at work because it's someone's birthday and they brought sweets in. Cool, fine, no big deal. But then they'll go, "Oh shit, I had a cookie." Oh well, and they'll throw the baby out with the bathwater, and then it all goes to shit.
Big Mac now.
Right. And it really is. And I try and use it. I use silly analogies all the time. I guess maybe because I've been a sales guy a lot of my career also, that I like to kind of break things down. But it's a bit like scrapping your car because you've got a puncture.
Yeah, no, it really is. It really, really is. But it's, again, I'm not here to preach. Like I said, I've been that guy plenty of times where I've just sort of like, I've had a donut at work and then sort of sod it and gone home and got a kebab or something. So I'm certainly not here to preach. But it's more a case of when you're in it and you're in the zone, you know that you do it, what you're achieving is working. Do your best not to throw away and just be mindful of it. So yeah, it can be done. I guess is probably my sort of my advice on that one, should we say.
Love that. We've covered a lot of ground on nutrition because there were so many great points. And to be honest, that could be a podcast in itself. But
Absolutely.
Let's talk exercise. Now, there's the old saying in the fitness space is that you can't out-train a bad diet. You need to get that bit right. And I think, again, one of the issues I have with the fitness industry right now is everybody is very preachy. So, but I'd like to kind of highlight and point out that if you see someone that is, let's say they're overweight and they're going to the gym or they're playing for whatever they're doing, playing football, it's really easy to say, "Oh, but you can't out-train a bad diet." But surely this is great too, right?
Yeah.
Not everybody is going to be Mr. Olympia. Not everybody wants to be. Certainly, I've noticed with a lot of my executive clients, they're busy professionals. They don't really care that much about how they look. A little bit, maybe they want the clothes to fit a bit better. Maybe they want to feel a bit more comfortable when they're public speaking, sure. But generally, they just want to perform better. They want to feel better. They want to be able to tie their shoelaces up without being out of breath. And so I'd like to understand, because I know you play football, but I'd be keen to understand how you incorporated exercise and how you are now incorporating exercise into your daily routine.
So football is a big part of it, and so I play on a Monday in a Man v Fat League, which we can cover off in a bit. I think it's on our list of things to talk about.
Sure.
But I absolutely love it. But because of that, we've got a big old community, and there's lots of offshoots of that. There's other sort of kickabouts that go on, and so often sort of play in that as well. So my main form of exercise is playing football, and coupled with that, I've got a boxer dog, so very active on the spectrum of dog breeds. Is a boxer, so I like taking her out as well, and that's my way to get my sort of 10,000-15,000 steps in by sort of taking her out and about. But that's my main exercise. I am looking to get back into the gym and start focusing on a bit of weight training as well. Again, that's really sort of woken up to that, talking to a few fitness professionals on the podcast about, like I said, the best way to burn fat is to lift weights. And historically, I think it wasn't deemed that way. People thought you just needed to run. If you want to lose weight, you just got to run.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think some of the more, again, I'm no expert on this, you'll probably know more than me, but running is great and is really good for you, and it's got the mental health benefits and the endorphins and all of that, but it's not necessarily the best thing for burning fat. It burns calories, is that right? But then your calories will then get replaced by what you eat next. Is that right? Again, do you want to elaborate?
Yeah, sure. So the general feeling is that it's more than anything, it's the metabolic demand. So without getting too nerdy about it, and there's people that are much more educated than me on this subject, essentially what happens is when you lift weights, you create micro tears in your muscle. So your body goes into, we call it hypertrophy, where the body repairs and the muscle kind of builds itself back stronger, because it's like, shit, we're not having that happen again.
Yeah.
But obviously it requires a huge metabolic demand to do that, which is why it's so important. It sounds really obvious and really stupid, but to feed kids, while they're growing. And there's a lot of talk about kids doing weights or resistance exercise when they're growing, because you're almost robbing Peter to pay Paul. So yes, generally the consensus is that lifting weights will help you reduce body fat as well as build muscle mass. It's also twofold. You will look leaner generally because you'll be building muscle mass, and it will start to protrude more so through the body fat. But it simply puts the metabolic demand that seems to last longer than if you go for a run, for example. But you should run also.
Yeah.
And this is this is when for me the fitness industry gets really preachy. Like, well, you'll burn more calories doing weightlifting. Sure, yeah, you will. But also you will get significant benefit from running also, or playing tennis, or dance, or the feeling of just enjoying your exercise is another significant thing that I think people overlook.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things I've learned as well, and speaking to some fitness guys on the show and that, and the most important thing is to do something you enjoy. I've never been one for running, and sort of being like a sort of a tubby kid at school and having to do cross country, that gave me nightmares. It really did.
I hated it too.
But put a ball at my feet or put a rugby ball in my hand, then I'll run all over the place. I'm quite happy to do that. And so so sort of, I guess my cardio probably does come from playing football, and stuff definitely that I'm doing more of now. And so I now need to complement that with a bit of weight training, and certainly it seems like the next step. I've done a bit of sort of weight resistance training in the past, and I just feel like I'm probably in a better position than I ever have been, and that's sort of the next step. So and I appreciate what you're saying on that, and it's again sort of like equipping yourself with knowledge. So we'll be giving it a go.
Yeah, I think it's really important. There's also a ton of studies, and again, the general fee. I'm always cautious whenever I talk about studies or research or science that, again, the fitness industry likes to pick one lane, or fitness professionals like, this is the thing.
Yeah.
I prefer to talk in slightly more ambiguous language, but the general consensus is that, like I say, if you enjoy it, you'll stick to it, and B, it has to be sustainable for you. That's the other significant portion. I put out a piece of content about a year ago now, and it talked exactly to that. I've got it here. It says you're more likely to stick to an exercise routine if you can make it a hobby. 5-a-side football, a dance class, martial arts, even walking with walking with a friend whilst gossiping. If you enjoy it, you'll look forward to it rather than avoid it and resent it.
Yeah,
I think that's something really important to factor in. But coming back to the weightlifting, there is some research, or quite a lot of research, that identifies that your strength correlates quite closely with your life expectancy.
Yes.
So being stronger, being also building muscle density. Bone density, excuse me, not just muscle density.
Okay.
So as we get older, you take a fall, you don't want to be frail. You want to have something
back
to
up.
you.
Yeah.
So that's also being able to take the impact when you hit the floor.
Yeah.
You know, so there's a lot of metrics that indicate that being stronger generally will serve you well in your later years. And
That's
you know, that's
certainly the
certainly
time.
something. So go ahead.
That's certainly the time, you know, when you're getting old, from when you fall over to then have a fall. And
Yes.
I laughed at the missus the other night about that. She stacked it, and it was like, it's all right. On this occasion, you fell over, but next time you might have a fall.
Right. That's it. Yeah, that's the difference. That is the difference between falling over and having a fall. But you feel it as you get older. I'm 37 this year.
Yeah.
Something very interesting happened to me actually the start of last year. We just had our son. As I said, I do jiu-jitsu. It's my big love. It replaced football. I stopped playing football in my mid-20s, and this has replaced that as my big love. And I've always been fit. I've always been active. I've always been strong, and I've always been kind of in the top % of my athletic endeavors. Played football at a really high standard, released from pro books at 19 or 20, I think, and county champion in athletics, and played for the city in basketball. So I was always pretty good at stuff. And we just had our son. I'd taken some time off the mats. I'd come back, and I rolled with this guy. Rolling is our sparring.
Right.
And he, technically on paper, his jiu-jitsu wasn't as good as mine. He hadn't been doing it as long as me. I'd been doing it about a year longer than he had, which actually generally makes technology. These things happen.
Yeah. Absolutely, mate. So.
For those listening and watching, apologies. I'm having my kitchen renovated, and there was a slight snag with some water and some electrics. So I don't really know how far we got. I think I got cut off while I was waffling about jiu-jitsu, which is about right. So let's just bypass that, because we were talking about football, and in particular your relationship with an organization called Man vs Fat. Is that correct?
Yeah, Man v Fat. That's the one.
Man v Fat.
Yeah.
Love what they're doing. Could you share with everybody what they are doing?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been a part of Man v Fat since 2018. Effectively, it's a men's weight loss group, all centered around six-a-side football. You have your teams. You basically turn up, you weigh in once a week. That keeps you accountable in terms of weight loss. If two players on your team lose weight, then you get an extra goal added to the scoreline. That's the broadest explanation to it. There's other ways in which you can get extra goals, down to sort of tracking your food intake for the week. 3 players on the team do that. That's another goal added. If a player loses 5, 10, 15, 25% of their body weight, they get 3 goals added to the scoreline. If you lose weight on 3 occasions, you get a hat trick. That's another goal. And basically, it gamifies weight loss in its broadest terms. And I've been playing Man v Fat for 6 years. But it's more than just the weight loss. It's huge on sort of like community and sort of support. It was a way to make new friends. Big part of it was obviously the mental health side of things as well. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of Man v Fat, and it features very heavily on my own podcast.
Yeah, I think that's such a brilliant way of, like you say, gamifying the whole thing. It makes you accountable. That's the big thing, and certainly something I've noticed in my coaching career has been that often that's the thing. People know that they're going to check in with me every week, and we're gonna dig into what they have or have not been doing. So that accountability to your teammates, I think is tremendous. And I also think it's really inclusive, because you might not be the best player, but you can
Yeah.
still score a hat trick.
Yeah, it's exactly that. And I've never been the most gifted of footballers. I love football. It's I live and breathe football, but I've never been a great player. But I've been able to share a pitch with some like-minded guys and do some great things. I've had some great opportunities being with Man v Fat. We played in a national tournament at St George's Park, which was an unbelievable experience.
Fantastic.
On top of that, like I said, there's been offshoots of other football. We play 11-a-side as well. So I play in the Peterborough Man v Fat League, and we'll play against Boston, or we'll play against Lincoln, we'll play against Cambridge, and there's a national tournament for that as well. I think so we've got 2 teams now. There's a first team and there's a reserve team. We've also hosted games at the Peterborough United Stadium. We do charity matches sometimes, but we've hosted other leagues as well. So it's a great setup, and it's one of the few things out there which supports men's weight loss. It's hence sort of like we got into big fellas. Beside Man v Fat, there really isn't much out there to sort of support men on weight loss, and so it's a big part of what I do and sort of how I get my exercise these days.
Fantastic. How many days a week are you doing that?
So Man v Fat is on a Monday evening, but then there's kickabout groups. Most nights of the week there's a game if someone wants to play. There'll be something going on. Sundays there's 11-a-side games. You're never too far away from an extra game if you want to get your minutes in that.
I love that it's on a Monday. I'm big on starting strong.
Yeah.
If you can stack your wins early, it generally feels a bit easier the rest of the week. Yeah,
and I think we just said this. I've often told to my mates is you're not going to have any more fun on a Monday night. There's nothing better than you can do on a Monday than come down and play Man v Fat. And what I like about it as well is it is competitive, and there's some real good players up there, and I often talk to people and I think they're also a little bit blasé, thinking, oh, this is just football for fat lads. But when they get down there, they realise actually standard's pretty good, because we've been playing together for years. There's some good old players up there, and I love it.
Well, you don't need to be in shape to have a good first touch, or to see a pass, or to strike a ball well, or or whatever it might be, or to just have positional awareness. It's again in combat sports we call it fight IQ, right? You don't look at Tyson Fury. He's not the poster boy like AJ. No. But fight IQ is tremendous, and it's the same. You see it with footballers. I remember watching Jamie Redknapp at the very end of his career. He was playing for Saints. I can't even remember who they were playing. The legs were gone. The injuries had caught up with him, and he didn't leave the centre circle, and he controlled the entire game. Yeah. He just let the ball come in, he fed it off, and he just did that for 90 minutes, and he was the best player on the pitch. And I don't think he covered more than 25 yards. So I think that's there probably is a bit of a misconception, guys coming in thinking maybe it'll be the standard won't be as high as it is. But no, I think that's tremendous, and it's that accountability, but also that community, which is why I'm so keen to talk about your podcast. Yeah, because having listened to it, the one thing that kept coming back to me as I was listening to it was it feels with podcasts in general. What I tend to find is I always feel like I'm in the conversation. There's something special about a podcast that makes you feel like you're in the room. Yeah, and I just kept thinking about how this felt like a community thing. And I think it's really important to have flag bearers like yourself out there.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, very much. The thing I said, there's not enough support for guys out there on weight loss. So I think that's partly maybe blokes' fault. And I mean that in a harsh way, but guys aren't very good at talking about thoughts and feelings. That's reality. And so what I think where a podcast will lend itself well is, a guy may not want to sit in a circle, like in a community centre, saying I've lost a pound this week. How does that make you feel? I'm not taking anything away from like Weight Watchers or Slimming World. That's a
No, I
model
know.
that works very well. We actually interviewed a guy from Slimming World this week, actually. But for a bloke environment, it's not really maybe their thing. But a guy that maybe has those thoughts and feelings still can perhaps sit down with a podcast, no one else around him, and just tune into that and just sort of listen to something that sort of like resonates with him. And that's kind of where this was sort of born out of, really. But yeah, we are here to try and create a community for guys and try and make that a bit more easier for guys to sort of talk about sort of like issues to do with their weight and appearance, which isn't easy. And I think guys will just try and brush it under the carpet and kind of laugh things off. And certainly that's been me in the past. Like I said, I always try to see myself as the funny fat guy in my sort of group of friends, and would often use it as a defense mechanism almost, where like I'd make a joke about myself being fat just to preempt it before someone else did about me, which is kind of sad, but that was kind of how it was. And so there was a time in the summer where I did just this. We were I went to a gig with my mates, and I was playing wingman to my mate who was chatting to some girls, and I dropped a fat joke about myself in, and then when the girls turned to me and goes, "Yeah, but you're not even fat." I'm like, "Oh, I've actually mastered it. I've got past this at last." And
Yeah, I love that story.
And that was really, that was probably a moment in the sand, if you know what I mean. It was like, actually, maybe I'm starting to take ownership of this at last. But yeah, that has very much been for me. That sort of like, yeah, I'll always be the funny fat guy and try and just almost stop people thinking about it or take that away from them as such. But kind of going back to what we're talking about, yeah, guys don't talk about this stuff enough, and so just to give a space where we could talk about it and maybe take that uncomfortableness away from them, just saying, look, we're two regular blokes, and we've shared our stories about sort of being overweight and embarrassment that's caused us, and it's okay to laugh about it, it's okay to talk about it, it's okay to feel embarrassed by it. And like I said, just because we're guys, we still have those sort of we still have those emotions. We may not express it in the same ways, but we go through the same challenges as the ladies do. We just maybe process it a bit different.
Yeah, and I think it's really brave, and I know that probably sounds a bit condescending, and I don't mean it in that way, but it's but someone had to step up and take the lead on it, and I just think it's such a brilliant thing. We are sensitive. We carry our burdens quietly often.
Yeah.
But we are sensitive characters, and we do want to look good and feel good. And yeah, it's maybe more than women know, actually.
Yeah.
And I always want to tread carefully, because I always think that the conversation around women's mental health and men's mental health, it's almost like a us versus them. It's but it really should be an and, not an or.
Yes.
But I don't know if women totally understand, and again, that's somewhat our fault, but also society, and I think having a couple of, let's say, regular guys that you feel like and that you feel like you could have a pint with, standing up and talking about this stuff, I think goes really far, because I can't remember the exact date, but in a nutshell, men's body dysphoria is on course to overtake women's.
I've heard that.
And that's a really sad place to be. And I had it as a kid. I had the opposite. I was a skinny kid. I'm still pretty skinny now. I've always had a hard time packing muscle on, and so you do kind of feel self-conscious. I don't want to wear that because it makes me look this way, or even for a lot of guys, I wasn't one of them, fortunately. I knew it was coming, to be fair, going bald. My dad was bald young, so was my granddad. I knew it was coming, and luckily, touch wood, it seems to suit me better than when I had hair. But it's the same type of thing, we worry about these things, and So I think having someone to stand up and say, "Hey, this is all right, guys. This is
Yeah.
fine." But at the same time, by the way, I really like that it's not just kind of, you don't seem to be just resting on that. It's like, but we are moving forward to make a change and make a difference.
Yeah.
I think both yourself and it's Darren, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
Your
Darren.
partner there, your co-host. I think you guys should be tremendously proud of the work you're doing, 'cause no doubt it's making a difference.
No, that's really kind to hear. I think the main aim for us was to just make it relatable, and I think one of the things that probably started a chain of thought on this all was a year or so ago, just seeing some social media, some fitness experts saying, if you want to lose weight, you got to do this, this, and this. And I'm there pushing 19 stone. He's there fit as a fiddle. I think I'm a million miles from that, mate. And
yeah,
I'm certainly not going to criticize the fitness industry, but I sometimes question, if you've never had to lose the weight, are you maybe perhaps missing a bit of a understanding and empathy that goes with this?
Yes.
And if we can offer that bit of middle ground to guys, then hopefully that can help them and set them on the way. We're not the finished article. We don't pretend to be. We're on our own journeys. And like I've said to you, I'm not done yet. I'm still working on it. And yeah, I'm confident that we will, like I said, I will get to somewhere that I am truly happy with. But yeah, for us, for guys to really sort of take note and listen, we felt like it had to be relatable and something that they see two guys that were 18 stone and are now 14 stone is far more relatable than seeing an 18-year-old who's 10.5 stone.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And the social media landscape drives me nuts at the moment. Drives me absolutely nuts. And I'm keen to understand your thoughts. I think you touched on it a little bit there, but what do you make of this, the fitness space in the social media landscape at the moment?
I just think social media as a whole, it's all about saying something almost controversial just to clickbait and fire up opinion and fire up almost a you versus me. Well, I think this. Well, that's wrong because I think this. And just the algorithm's there to just kind of produce divisive content, which I'm not really enamored by. I just want to see, I don't know how I can sort of hack my algorithm to see stuff that's maybe a bit more positive. I don't know if you're able to do that. But yeah, I've seen I'll be on one bit of content and it'll be a guy on the carnivore diet that eats nothing but steak and eggs and saying, if you want to get lean, this is what you got to do. To another one saying, if you've got to eat vegan, and then there'll be someone else saying, well, just take the injection. And yeah, like you said, I think you said earlier, there's just so much information out there, and that's probably the situation is, for every bit of information there's people making content on it. And so it leaves you in a situation where you're almost just overstimulated and just you don't know what to believe or what to think.
Yeah, I agree, and I'll kind of give people a little peek behind the curtain perhaps with this, because I think it's really important and it drives me fucking insane. So on my social media, the way I've set my account up is, as fitness, health, coach, all these buzzwords, and then the algorithm fires you stuff that if you're looking at shoes, then it's going to fire you adverts for shoes. Every third or fourth post as I'm scrolling through social media, there is some wannabe guru business consultant telling personal trainers that if you want to earn this much a month, and if you want to get more engagement, and if you want to sign up more clients, this is the type of stuff you need to be saying. So, my advice to anybody would be, look, take it, including, by the way, my content, take it with a pinch of salt, take what you like, throw away what you don't, but go and do your own research, because there is a lot of clickbait. And I've said this a bunch of times, five reasons why you should X, right? Fine. 5 reasons as to why you should weight train. Cool. This is the thing that bugs me. Stick around till the end, because number 5 is the most important. well, if number 5 is the most important, tell me first.
Yeah,
Don't make me watch your whole video because it does you a favor in the algorithm.
yeah.
Or this like 1 second, 2 second reels, and then I've got to read War and Peace in the caption to get to the point, whilst
Yeah.
your video continuously spins and racks up views while
Yeah.
I'm reading. So take what you like, throw away what you don't. But and look, it's not just the fitness industry; that's marketing in general. But
Yeah.
Just be aware that there are people out there that are trying to make money coaching coaches to make more money. It's funky. So just take it with a pinch of salt. And generally speaking, the stuff that is doing really well and the ones with loads of followers and engagement is probably the controversial shit, because it riles people up.
Yeah.
So the fitness industry at the moment, from a social media standpoint, I think is a real mess. I don't know what the answer is.
Yeah, no, I don't either. Yeah, but it really is a jungle out there, and I said with all these algorithms, everyone's fighting for attention, and so you've got to play the game to sort of get your stuff recognised. But then you're almost falling into the trap as well. It's I'm no social media expert, so I don't know what the answer is, but it's a tricky path.
Cool. I'm conscious that our technical glitch has taken away some of our time, so I do apologise, and I hope this podcast has come out all right. I'm sure it has. I do apologise for anybody that was watching and listening and had that abrupt stop. But Mark, if someone's been listening to this conversation or watching this on YouTube, and they're feeling inspired by your journey and thinking, shit, I'm nearly 40 or something 9, and they want to get started, what would be kind of the highlights that they should be, bullet points, headlines that they should be considering to get started? What would be your advice, either to them or to you at 39 years old, knowing what you know now?
It was just, I guess, knowing that you really want to do it, and it's, I don't know, I think you all get to a point where you realise you've tried this, you tried that, you've made excuses, you've made that. You've got to have that sort of long, hard conversation with yourself saying, look, this time it's for real. I'm going to do this. I'm going to try harder than I've ever tried before. And sort of seek help. You're not going to do it all on your own, and don't pretend that you can do it all on your own. I think those are the really things. So, so my starting point was I met with the Cambridge Weight Plan consultant, but it was a realization that I'm turning 40 and something needs to change. And it's just being honest with yourself, I guess.
I think that's really good advice. I think once you're ready to accept the help or make the change, that needs to be step one. And I think you touched on something with the football. It's got to be something you enjoy. Find out what it is you enjoy.
Yeah, 100%. And like I said, I'm a football fanatic, so again, I'll be playing probably into my 50s as long as my body can sort of hold it up. And it just, I love the game, and sort of like just again, but it's not just that. I love the community and getting together sort of on a Monday night. As I said, there's nothing better to do on a Monday night, so why not go play a bit of football?
Tremendous. Before we close up, Mark, where can people find you? Obviously, Big Fellas Podcast. Lots going on. I found you through LinkedIn. We connected there first. So, where can people find you and Darren?
So the Big Fellas Podcast, if you search that, it's in all your sort of major podcast providers, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, all of them. You put in Big Fellas Weight Loss and Men, you'll find us. We're on all the social medias as well. We've got channels. We put out content on there as well, just sort of shorts of that week's interview mainly. But I'm on LinkedIn myself, as is Darren, and I'm on all the other pro platforms as well. So reach out to me. My name's Mark Hall. Again, not the easiest name to search on social media. There's a few of us about, but come find us through the Big Fellas Podcast would be the best way. And like I said, have a listen to the show. So we hope we can help.
I think it will. I've listened to it. I really enjoyed it. I think, I haven't come across, I consume a lot of fitness and wellbeing content, and I haven't come across anything quite like it. So I really do urge you, if this conversation has sparked your interest or your curiosity, you should be absolutely checking out that podcast, because I think there's a ton of value, not just from an educational standpoint, although there is that, your information and tips and things to help you, but again, that community, feeling part of something. So, kudos to you, Mark. Fair play, mate. I think what you're doing is tremendous.
Awesome. Thank you, mate. Appreciate it.
Oh, the pleasure's mine. Well, Mark Hall, ladies and gentlemen. Mark, thanks for coming on. I've loved this conversation. I would love to perhaps do this again, maybe 6-12 months down the line, and see where you're at.
Yeah, definitely. Let's do it.
Top man. Thanks again.
Thanks, mate.